I was a lifelong employee. Like my parents were all employees. Everybody in my family was employed. Nobody was an entrepreneur. I didn't even really know what that was. But so I had a job like everybody else, right? But I was in healthcare and I went to school for like 16 years, got my PhD, did postdocs, did the whole thing, did everything I was supposed to do according to my dad, right? And we kind of fit all the
Mhm.
same mold. And it was good. I rose up in the healthcare ranks. I was getting paid really well. Things were kind of good until it's like, and I remember really clearly, Kim, one day I'm just sitting there and this popped into my head. I'm like, is this all there is?
Welcome to the Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Kim Ward, a certified master life and business coach, NLP practitioner, and your guide to building a life and business that you absolutely love. Here, we're all about empowering family focused entrepreneurs to design a leveraged business that supports your dreams, your values, and most importantly, your family. Each episode, we'll dive into practical strategies, mindset shifts, and powerful insights to help you create unstoppable momentum and lasting success without sacrificing what matters most. Whether you're looking to grow your business or get unstuck or align your goals with your lifestyle, you're in the right place. So let's get intentional, let's get inspired, and let's design a life you love by design. Let's dive in. Well, life by design means all the things that are going to help you make good decisions one after another. And before you know it, you are creating the life that you've always dreamt of. I am super, super excited for today. One of my very close, very dear friends has helped entrepreneurs work part-time, but experience full-time results. Is it possible? Let's find out. Dr. Bob Clarke, hello.
Tim Ward, how are you? Good to see
I'm
you.
happy you're here. So it's about time, buddy.
Yeah, it's always awesome to spend time with you guys and looking
I
forward to
love
it
it.
today.
Yeah, I do too. I do too, because you've been helping people for many years, just really whether they have a full-time gig or a job or they're in the corporate sector, but they want or need a side hustle, or maybe they're dipping their toes into the entrepreneurial world. You've really, really helped them bridge that gap. And
Yeah.
it's because you've done it yourself. So tell us a little bit about you and kind of where you were at. What got you here?
Yeah. It's a long winding road, but I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version of it. So basically, so I was a lifelong employee. Like my parents were all employees. Everybody in my family was employed. Nobody was an entrepreneur. I didn't even really know what that was. But so I had a job like everybody else, right? But I was in healthcare and I went to school for like 16 years, got my PhD, did postdocs, did the whole thing, did everything I was supposed to do according to my dad, right? And we kind of fit all the
Mhm.
same mold. And it was good. I rose up in the healthcare ranks. I was getting paid really well. Things were kind of good until it's like, and I remember really clearly, Kim, one day I'm just sitting there and this popped into my head. I'm like, is this all there is?
Oh,
Like, is this what I'm going to do until I'm 65 and then I'm done and that's it? I mean, my job was really rewarding, right? We worked in infertility. My wife and I were in the same lab, and we helped people get pregnant who couldn't have
oh,
families. So that was, yes, it's rewarding, right? But like any other job, after a while, it's like, okay, I need more challenge. I need what, is this all there is? And
yeah.
maybe some of you guys who are listening to the podcast, feel that way sometimes. Is this what my life is? This is it. So started toying. My wife and I, we just gotten married. It's a second marriage for both of us, and we're like, we should do something, really shake it up, do something different. And you're gonna laugh at this because it's totally ridiculous, but
I already feel it coming. I don't know what you're going to say, but I feel it coming.
back when I had hair, I had to go to a barber, right? And I went into this barber shop, and there were like two people ahead of me, so I'm sitting waiting. You know how those usual barber shops, right? And I'm looking around for something to read because back then we didn't have cell phones yet, right? There was
Yeah.
nothing. And on the table in front of me were some magazines. I was like, I don't know what. And there was a pamphlet. So I pick up the pamphlet. I'm looking at it. It's like start your own business. right? Be your own boss. All the right stuff that's hitting me, right? I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm looking at, right? And it was a network marketing company. And brought it home. My wife and I looked at it, boom, signed up. Didn't know anything about it, didn't know anything about the products. Like, this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna get rich,
It works.
right? And I don't have to tell anybody how it went. It didn't go well, but that was our introduction into it. And you know, as my journey kind of kept going, this was 2008, and I started realizing that, building a business and having a job are two very different animals, and it requires two different ways of thinking and acting, and so I began my journey of doing that into a whole personal development thing and all that. And you know, I made every mistake I could possibly make, probably, I think. Bought a lot of stuff that I didn't really need, moved around to find a company that worked.
Nobody relates to this right
All
now,
right,
right?
right.
Nobody.
Wanted to find an upline that really understood me and that would help me build my business or would do it for me, the whole,
I
right?
love it.
So I went around and around and around. At one point, I was in two different MLMs and two different attraction marketing companies trying to build everything. And probably my coach at the time just said, plant your flag somewhere. Just settle down. Stop joining stuff. And so I eventually learned all these lessons that we all learned, right? But along the way, I figured out all the big differences. There were the hurdles that had to be overcome if you're coming from a job kind of a mentality into being an entrepreneur, a business owner. Because I got news for you, and you know this, but just because you own a business doesn't mean you're an entrepreneur,
Ooh, that hits.
right? Everybody's like, I'm an entrepreneur now. No, you're not. I mean, maybe you are, but if you're an employee before that, you're probably not. You do have a whole long way to go before you're an entrepreneur.
For sure.
So that's the kind of stuff that I knew really people needed help with. That's where I kind of settled into that role. And then to advance the story, I still love my job, still love what I was doing until I didn't, which means I got promoted into something I didn't like.
Mhm.
Went from the lab up into management and hiring and firing, and I didn't like that part of it. And they were making me do it. So I started planning the exit strategy. And the cool thing was I had the exit strategy in place.
Amazing.
Right? I had options, I had choices, I could make a decision. So I went into my boss and said, 6 months from now, I'm out, just so you know. And he thought I was kidding. And 6 months to the day, my wife and I were cutting our retirement cake. And,
Wow.
and I retired about 5 years ahead of schedule, I would say. Because I had planned to stay in my job because I liked it, but then things changed, right? So
Yeah.
that's the big thing. Sometimes it's not like I want to get rid of my boss right away. Sometimes you like what you're doing, and that's okay. That's all good. But build later so you have choices if things change,
That's right.
right? That's the big
Oh.
thing.
And now
And
you can see why I brought this man here because honestly, how many trainers and coaches and mentors or, people in our industry will tell you they'll bash a job. And
yeah,
that's not what we're ever here to do. I mean, sometimes as an entrepreneur, I'm like, just give me a job so I can get out of the house and have some mental sanity and just meet people,
yeah, yeah,
And you're not saying like, I'm here to teach you how to quit your job. It's like, no, what you just said is options and choice. And I
yeah,
think that's what everybody wants in their life is just to have the ability to make those choices because I've created options. And that's
yeah.
what you and your wife did. I've been friends with you for so long and I never knew that barber shop story. That's
I
incredible.
don't tell it very often because it's a little embarrassing, but
No,
and
it's not.
and the real cool part of this too is when I first started, I was telling my coworkers about it, and they all made fun of me. Like, why would you do that? Like, that's stupid. Like, and then periodically they'd be like, making any money with that thing yet? That side business yet? And they
That
kind of laugh,
pyramid scheme.
right? And at my retirement dinner, this one guy comes up to me who's always been one of these guys who kind of needled me, and he's like, "What was that thing you were doing again?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, you mean the thing that's allowing me to retire right now ahead of schedule?" Yeah, I'll tell you about
I love
it.
that.
No,
I
it's
love
it's
that.
kind of fun. Yeah.
And you know what? I'll say on behalf of all of our listeners, thank you for doing everything wrong. Thank
Yeah.
you for
Well,
taking the swings that you did because if it weren't for people like you who are like, look, I did it all. I figured it out and here's the roadmap. But here, what goes along with that is those of us who do figure things out, we could choose to keep it to ourselves and just work quietly and make money. So why is it important for you to reach and help those individuals who are looking for that versus just keeping it to myself?
Yeah. I know it's kind of a canned answer nowadays, but when you hit a certain point in your life, it's less about money and more about legacy,
For sure.
And I've gotten to the point in my life where I'm like, how can I impact more people? And yeah, you can impact your family and your immediate friends, and that's good. But this platform allows me to help people who I don't even know need help.
Mm.
They may not even know they need help, right? Until they hear some of the training that I do. So that's probably the short answer to that question is that, yeah, I could just go about my stuff and do it, but I get a lot of pleasure and satisfaction out of seeing somebody's light bulb go off and like, oh, okay, so I need to do that next, right? And that's what I like. I really live for that. So that's why I do
I
it.
love that. So if someone's listening right now and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in this job and maybe I don't want to quit, but I've been looking for the something extra." What piece of advice would you give them if they were just starting,
So have they started a business yet or no?
just looking, starting to look?
Yeah. Um, my advice would be to really understand what your options are. Like when I first started, I didn't know what network marketing even was.
Mhm.
I don't think I even heard of it. And so I jumped, which is okay, right? I guess that's all right. But it would have been better if I had made a more informed choice. So ultimately, I found out, network marketing kind of isn't the model that I really like to work under. I really like affiliate marketing, and that's what I want to do. So I've gravitated toward affiliate marketing over the years, and that's where I am now. Um, it probably would have been better if I'd done some research and really figured out what my options were to do that. So that would be the first thing I would do is just, do some research, figure out what are your options out there, and ask like you could go into ChatGPT, what are the different business models? And so you can lay it out and say, oh, like, oh, I really love I, I love this Etsy thing. This looks really cool. Like I think if it goes right into my talents. So make an informed decision. Just don't jump in because you want to have a business. That's what I did.
Yeah. But I think it sharpened your skills and helped you really look at or through different lenses. And it made you an impeccable trainer and mentor. I mean, you're patient with people. You are a great coach. I mean, I sign up for your training still just to be there in the background and listen because I love how you teach. And it's understandable. It's not fluff. It's not smoke and mirrors where people feel like I get what you're saying, but I can't do this. And you've just really broken it down to its simplest form so that people can have choices and those options in their own life. And to me, that's the definition of win. That's
Yeah.
winning.
I appreciate that, Ken. That means a lot coming from you. And um, a lot of that was because in my job, I trained a lot of people and I had to break things down, pretty complex subjects into simple steps.
Yeah,
So I kind of had that talent because I did it for a long time in my life. So I brought that into my business, which really seems to resonate with a lot of people because, they say that this stuff isn't hard. Well, it is hard.
it's hard
There's a lot of steps to it, but one step at a time. But you have to know what the step is. So I like to break it down into things that people can kind of do and also do in the time they have, which is an important aspect of the people I train. Most people don't have that much time. So
for
like,
sure.
how do you do this all in 30 minutes a day, right? Like that's there's
And
tricks
it's
to it, but you have to know.
I love it. And it's still relevant if you've transitioned out of your career. Most of us want more time with our family or more time for whatever, again, we choose to do with it. So it still boils down to choice. So, how can I become an entrepreneur, not just a business owner, without having to spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day on my phone, on my computer, in the grind, hustling my butt off? And that's really what you help people with. I want to
Yeah.
make you dig deep in your memory banks here. All right, when you were still working,
Yeah.
I want you to find the biggest win that you can remember in your business while you still had a job.
I figured out I'm a little bit tech challenged. I don't, I'm okay with some stuff, but some like my phone and stuff is just beyond me. So I had a BlackBerry back then. And I was so proud of myself because I figured out a way that my phone would ding when I got a lead.
Ah,
And there was one day where I was in the lab, I was working, and I'm hearing ding, ding, ding. And only I knew what it was. And every time a ding came, I would just kind of smile. Right. At the end of the day, I had like 10 leads. It was, wasn't right. It was spaced out throughout the day. But
it's exciting.
I can do this. Because up until then, it was like maybe I'd get a lead when I was talking to somebody after work, and I'd go through messengers. But this was like coming through when I was working. And that was
Exciting.
like, hey, I can do this,
That's really exciting.
and it doesn't sound like a big deal to generate a lead, but for me, it meant that, yeah, I can work a job and I can have stuff happening while I'm working my job,
Mm.
and it wasn't any great automation stuff. It was just things that little things I had put in place that, a blog post, right? Or a video or something that was generating some leads. And it's like, okay, I understand this now. I get it.
That's really cool. That's a cool win because that that provides hope for people who are like, I want to hear those dings too. But let's be real. In our digital space, and I mean, you and I have been in this space for a long time. And when 2020 hit, we know what happened in the world. We saw the Great Recession, and everybody thought they would come to the internet and make money and do all these things. So we have people and TikTok and all these bad trainings teaching people, oh, you can work from your phone and make 20 grand a month and, not put any effort into it. Not, and it's like, look, let's cut to the chase and be real. That's kind of fake news because you do have to set up the systems. You have to create the process. You have to know who you're talking to, right? And it's building that personal brand. I want to ask you a question. You got to be truthful. Faceless marketing, yes or no?
No.
All right, high five. This is it, the OGs. It's about building that personal brand. And you
Yeah.
can't build that like, know, and trust factor if you're out there completely faceless. I'm going on a whole side tangent now. So now that you've transitioned into your business, what's been the biggest, greatest win being full time in the business?
Probably now that I've gone full time and I'm able to spend more time on this, I've been able to do some really good joint ventures with people. And now I understand the leverage that goes with that I didn't really appreciate before. Tapping into other people's audiences and realizing like I kind of knew that, but this is like on steroids. When you start working with other marketers who maybe have a little bit bigger audience than you do, or much bigger audience, like you have a bigger audience than me. So when we work together, I'm all happy, right? Because I have a lot more eyeballs on me than I used to, right? So that's been like the biggest win for me, is really starting to forge those relationships with people. And it's one of the activities now that I work on, like trying to think of, okay, well, who could I joint venture with? How can I make this a win-win for both of us? What could I bring to the table? Does it fit with their audience? All in preparation of having a conversation with somebody, right? And that's been a huge win for me because I've just been able to go much, much faster.
I love that. That's awesome. So I have a question and I'm thinking about this, and it's like the people who are listening are thinking, okay, what if I don't have a side hustle or a side gig? Is that something you, Dr. Bob, can help me explore and discover?
You mean someone who wants one but doesn't have one?
Hmm?
Yeah. Well, so funny story. A while back, I was looking for like different Facebook groups and different groups in general to go into to see who I could find and help. And I got into all these side hustle groups. And I thought these are perfect. These are people who either have one or are looking for one, and well, it's right up my alley, right? Well, I soon found out that 99% of people in there were looking for a second job. They weren't really looking for a business. They like calling it a side hustle. And maybe you can, but to me, at least for me, a side hustle is a business. Most people just wanted extra money, which is cool. And they just wanted to do what was comfortable, which was another job, because they're used to that.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the first thing that people really have to understand is what do you want? Right? Like that's the first decision. If you want a second job, fantastic, right? And go that route, right? But understand that it's a job and you
Yeah.
get it's all the stuff that goes with a job. If you want a business, that's a whole different thing to go after. And I tell people straight out, Kim, I don't know if you do this, but I'm like, you got to commit to 3 to 5 years to
Yeah.
make
Oh,
to
yeah.
make this work, right? Depending on your prior background. But you know, all the you were saying that the kind of the false advertising kind of stuff that's out there and it's still out there. But when I first started, the whole mantra was fire your boss, right?
Yeah.
And they had a guy showing a video of him firing his boss right on the spot, right? And it was all glorified and stuff. And that's great, right? That is the kind of the goal for a lot of people is to ditch their job. But you got a long ways to go to do that. And the other thing I try to set with people is like, yeah, you need some long-term commitment to this, and it's going to be hard. So buckle up,
Love that.
And I probably lose a lot of people because I start with that.
Oh, I do too. And I tell them whether it's Pinterest or whether it's this conversation we're having right here, this is why we call it a journey.
Yeah,
And it is a journey. And you're going to, yeah, I just, ah, I
yeah,
wish they could just get into our brains and be like, this is really what it actually takes. But having someone like yourself who's like, let's do the most income producing action steps
right.
first and always so that we're not spinning our wheels, we're not wasting time, we're not scrolling and being a consumer versus being a creator. Where do you hang out the most on online? Which platform?
Facebook. Facebook is where most of my people are, so that's where I usually am.
Awesome. So if you want to stalk Dr. Bob, you'll be able to see his Facebook link right in the show notes. So go find him, follow him, friend request him. But I know he brought a gift for you today. So tell us about your stupid, simple daily action guide for part-time entrepreneurs. I
Yeah,
love the title.
yeah, that just popped into my head one day. But anyway, so we're all about solving problems. You and I try to solve problems for our audiences all the time, our tribes. And I soon realized that a very basic problem that people had in my space is you have 30 minutes maybe to work on your business, maybe 45, maybe an hour, right? You don't want to waste it. And I remember so many times wasting that time.
Me too.
Scrolling YouTube videos. They didn't really have TikTok
Except
back
for
then.
this one. This is valuable.
This is valuable. But you know what I mean. Like you can waste time pretty easily on social or
Yeah.
whatever. So what I put together was a guide to help people identify what are your 1, 2, 3 most impactful activities that you can do today that will move the needle on your business.
Love it.
And it depends on a lot of things, right? It depends on what are you currently doing, what's your business model, how far into it are you, what's your experience. So it's not going to be like a cookie cutter thing, but I was able to like kind of identify in general, right? This is the good starting point for you. So you can start with, okay, I'm a network marketer. I'm just starting. My most impactful activity is going to be meeting people and,
Mhm.
and showing them what I have, right? Offering what I have. Until you have a team, that's probably going to be your most impactful activity for quite a while,
Yep.
right? But a lot of people don't do it because it's not easy.
It's not sexy.
No, right? And one of my earliest mentors, I know you're one of yours too, Diane Hockman, always told me, if you just meet 3 people a day,
Mhm.
you'll develop a multi-million-dollar business. And I always
So
thought, how's that? Come on. But she's right. Right. It's all about expanding your network and all that. So that's what the stupid simple daily action guide is for. Basically, how to identify your most impactful activity, how to prioritize it first, because you always want to do it first, and then how to be consistent with it. Those are kind of the 3 aspects of it. So,
so
um,
good.
and it must be pretty popular because about 2 years ago, I started running a little tiny Facebook ad to it. And after 2 years, it's still popping at $1 a lead. So,
Wow. Buddy, we got to do some Pinterest ads with this thing.
oh, I do that with another one, but
All
yeah,
right, all
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Thank you
yes,
for bringing
yeah.
that because honestly, whether you're still in the job, whether you're kind of like myself and Dr. Bob, where it's like, okay, we're in this new space. I mean, you were smart. You planned this exit strategy ahead of time. I did not. My security blanket was my husband's very beautiful six-figure salary at the fire department. And because we've taken the steps and done the things that you've shared with us today, and a few more, of course, we've been able to triple what he used to make from home, and doing things this way. And I love it because we have choice.
Yeah.
We have freedom. We have options in our life, and we get to choose how we work, when we work. And I think there's a lot of people who are craving that kind of life. So if you're hearing us and you're raising your hand going, me, that's me, you've got to download this. I've downloaded it. I have it. I learn from Bob all the time. He's helped me shave so much time off of my wasteful actions that I was like, I'd rather do this because it feels better than doing that, which is going to actually move the needle. So the link to, and he calls it the stupid, simple daily action guide for part-time entrepreneurs. Whether you're part-time or not, this is going to teach you how to get more impactful steps done in less time so that you can go do you. All
Well, I
right.
could have said it better myself. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm like your little spokesperson over
That's
here.
perfect. I want that little clip right there.
You got it. Done. I mean, you even taught me the tool that I could go do that in. So,
Yeah, right.
see what I mean? It's like you said, it's who you have in your network. And we've heard the cliche sayings like your network is your net worth, but it's so true. It's fulfillment, it's financial, it's all the ways. So, I want to give you the opportunity. Any last minute word or something that maybe I didn't touch on that we probably should have?
Um, no, because it was a great interview. But I touched on something only briefly that I want to kind of hammer home
Okay.
because I know it was probably the thing that delayed my results the most. And that is I didn't stay in one place long enough to build it,
Mm,
you know? And I'll tell you right now, as long as you are learning, right? Learning new things and out there trying it and making mistakes, that's fine. Um, Change of venue probably isn't the problem, right? Going to a new company probably isn't going to help. It could, but usually it's not that. It's usually the fact that you haven't really settled in long enough to build it and make things happen. So if I could kind of give one piece of advice to everybody, it'd be like find a place you love, right? And then stay there.
yeah.
Build it and go through all the ups and downs that go with building a business and resist the temptation to pull up your flag, go somewhere else because the grass is greener over there, because it probably isn't.
No,
Makes
and
sense.
that's true. When you were saying that, and my head was chinging, FOMO is
Hmm.
real. So what you're
Yeah,
saying is put those blinders on
yeah,
so that you can't look right, you can't look left, and FOMO, it can't exist. It can't.
right.
You have to build and solidify what you're doing. Because if you don't do it for a long enough period of time, you're not going to get data. And without data, you can't make the decisions to grow or change or tweak or do something different. And we know better than anybody that your business is built on data, not emotion.
One of the big changes when you're coming from a job to a business that I found really hard to kind of go between, because keep in mind, like when you're building a business part-time and you have a job, for example, you're constantly switching back and forth, job, business, job, business. And one of the mentalities in a job that was hammered into me was don't make any mistakes or
Mm,
limit them as much as you possibly can. And the job I did, which was kind of sensitive, if I made a big mistake, I was out, right? It didn't matter how much experience I had. If you make that kind of mistake where you mix stuff up, you're out, right? So
you are not the father.
yeah, right. And I've heard too many experiences like that, but But my point is, um, with a business, you have to be making mistakes, and it's kind of cliche, but it's true. Like if you're not out there doing stuff, then you're not going to make mistakes, but you're also not going to grow.
Mm.
And I found myself pulling back early on because I didn't want to make a mistake because it was hammered into me. Mistakes equals bad,
Oh, so good.
you know? So that to me was a big hurdle to overcome. And to this day, I still fight it a little bit. Like I don't want to mess that up, right? But yeah, go mess it up. It's nothing. The house isn't on fire, right? It's okay.
Yeah,
At
absolutely.
least you're growing and you're doing stuff. Because I learned most of what I know now from making the mistake doing it the first time, right? Learning how not to do it.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that you say that because you, as a coach, and me as a coach, I know we've had a lot of similar cases where people are held in paralysis because
Mhm.
of that fear, the fear of movement, the fear of what they consider failing, but we consider learning and growth. And it's so important. I heard a statistic the other day that 90% of entrepreneurs grew up in a chaotic, dysfunctional, if you will, environment. So we've developed the skills to really thrive in that type of environment. And when we start to put the processes and the systems in place and things become calm, we're not familiar with that. We don't have the skills for the calm. So we start to self sabotage so that the chaos is brought back. And I'll just say one thing that I absolutely love about this plan that you've provided is here's the steps. Let's gradually assist you in developing those processes and the systems so that when either you're ready for that exit plan, could you imagine if you exited after a beautiful career and then like self imploded and you had nothing? Like, thank God that didn't happen. But in most cases, the entrepreneur wants to sabotage so they could go back to what feels comfortable, and that's that dysfunction and that chaos. So what you're doing here is like, let's put your foot on the pool staircase, okay, and then the next one, and then let's walk down one step, and then let's go to the next step. And we're not just diving into the deep end where we're like, I can't do this. So
Yeah.
thank you is all I can say.
Yeah. It's I mean you encapsulated it so nicely, so I hesitate to even dent it a little bit because you do it so well. So there's a lot to it, you know, and you can get, I don't like to use the word overwhelmed, but it's true, right? You can get overwhelmed by the enormousness of it, if that's a
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
If you like, it's great to look big picture, but sometimes that's very intimidating. Like, how am I possibly going to get to where Kim is if I'm all the way down here? You know,
Jim
like,
used to think that too.
right? We all did, you know, because we were down in the bottom.
Yeah.
And it's literally like you just described it. It literally is a stepwise progression of little baby steps. And the key to it is just like focusing on the next baby step. I know that like we hear that a lot with personal development, but it really is true. Like if you try and jump way ahead, life has a way of pulling you back.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
I always think about this. I knew a guy when I first started, and he was just like me. He was just starting out, and all of a sudden, he made like all this money, right? And he was up on stage for the company brought him out and stuff. And you know, I don't know the exact what happened, but he had had a couple of really big sales from his ads that he was doing. Somebody was helping him with ads, and so he jumped up to almost 10K first in the first 3 months.
Wow.
And everybody's like, "Oh my God, look at this guy! He's the next superstar." And guess what? He didn't really know what he was doing. I'm not saying he got lucky, but everything aligned in his favor. And within 6 months, he was gone
Wow.
because he wasn't. It was just a thing, and it pulled him back. And then once it pulled him back to where he really was, he didn't like that,
Yep.
and he jumped out looking for the next big thing that would help
Yeah.
him.
We got to work the muscles. We got to work the right muscles as we
Yeah.
step into this new version of ourselves. So, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Friends, go find Dr. Bob on Facebook. We've linked his profile for you. You're going to see lots of great goodness and really how he leads by example. And do yourself a favor, grab this stupid, simple daily action guide. I have it, I live by it, and Bob has created a beautiful life with his wife and family down in South Florida by being a living example of this guide. So that's a wrap. That's it for today. Bob, thank you as always.
Been a pleasure, Kim. I love coming out with you, working with you anytime I can. So thank you for inviting me.
And hey, before you go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. And as always, friends don't let friends grow and develop alone. So share this episode with someone you love and care about. We'll see you in the next episode.